Hello friends, followers and channel members, welcome back to another video in Microsoft Flight Simulator. In this video we will be looking at how to fly an NDB approach, and I'll try to cover what you need to do to configure the aircraft for approach and fly the approach using an NDB station rather than the conventional commonly used ILS or VOR. This is more likely going to be very similar to how to fly a VOR approach tutorial that I have published I think 2-3 weeks ago. But regardless, we will go through all the details and I'll try to show you how to fly this approach properly. Currently we departed from Gran Canaria airport, and the destination I chose for this tutorial is La Palma, and the reason I chose this is because it has an offset runway and NDB station, and this will make things a little bit more interesting for us. Let's jump into the cockpit and start talking about what we are going to do to program the approach and configure the aircraft. Alright, as you see, we are currently holding at Araco waypoint. If I bring the chart and talk what we need to do, you will see where we are holding. So this is our chart, and that's where we are holding, with an inbound course of 307 degrees and outbound course of 127. And after we exit the hold, we need to fly a DME arc to our initial fix, which is 16 DME from Bravo Victor DME station. And not sure why it's following the aircraft, don't show it to me please. And then at 8.5 DME to Bravo Victor, that's our final fix. And then there's the runway, and you see how it is offset relative to our flight path. So the La Palma NDB station is 389er. We need to tune this. It's also displayed at the top. Our final approach course is 350 degrees, and at 3,400 feet we should expect to start the descent with a 3.25 degrees glide path into the runway. So if this approach is programmed in your FMC, we can use LNAV and VNAV like we did with the VOR approach tutorial. If this is not programmed in the FMC, and if you are missing this approach from your database, you need to create your waypoints by following the vertical profile, and you can then use VNAV and LNAV, or you have to use heading mode and vertical speed. To use vertical speed and heading mode, which we are not going to use, you need to check this vertical profile and make sure you are making these altitudes or getting really close when you reach these distances from the Bravo Victor DME. Also, another helpful information on the chart is the ground speed and the required vertical speed to meet the vertical profile. So if we are flying 160 knots, we need to descend at 920 feet per minute to align with the glide path into the runway. The minimums that we will use for this approach is going to be 1740. We haven't set anything up yet, so we will start configuring our radios and our MCP, etc. for our approach. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the missed approach altitude. That is going to be 3,000 feet. So we will talk more about this, but we will set the missed approach altitude when we reach to our minimums. And because this is an offset radio station relative to runway, due to the high terrain around the runway, there is no direct descent path when it comes to runway center line, and it is also displayed on the chart as well. DME VOR required. Final approach track is offset by 14 degrees from runway center line. So this information is very helpful. That means we should expect a 14 degree offset heading or track into the runway when we are on approach. Alright, let's start programming our aircraft. First thing, we will set the NDB station 38 389er, and we will make it active. To be able to see it on our standby, we need to flick this switch to ADF and it should pick up the signal. We are not on the correct approach course, so we need to set that to 350. 350 on this side as well. That's 2 information on our chart set. We need to flick this switch to ADF so that we can see the information here. It is identified as Bravo X-ray, which is correct according to the chart. We also need to tune the DME to see our distance to the DME station, so that's 112.4. We will tune it to our NAV1 radio and make it active, and we should, if we go to, actually what we can do is, let's do this. Instead of that, we will tune it to our radio, NAV2 radio, so that we can use both information on our ND. So now it's identified as on our NAV2 La Palma DME, and we are 25 miles, roughly 25 miles away from it. Final approach course is set, a NDB station is tuned, DME is tuned to our radios. We are going to use brakes 3 or the brakes 3 for landing. We will set it right now. And what else we are missing here? Oh yeah, the fixes. So let me get rid of the chart. We'll go to the fix page. We'll select runway 36. And then we will put a 5-mile ring and a 10-mile ring. The reason I'm doing this is to have a 5-mile ring, which will tell me that this is the latest point I can drop the landing gear and select my final flaps. And 10-mile ring is a reminder that I need to select flaps 5 before passing this ring. The next thing we will do is we will select the Bravo Victor DME. That is the top one here, La Palma DME. And we will set a 16-mile ring, which is the DME arc that we need to fly according to our chart to reach our initial approach fix. Again, let's take another look. It takes some time for this to load, but it'll be here in a second. And as you see, 16 DME arc Bravo Victor. So that's why we have a 16 DME ring from Bravo Victor to see how those waypoints are aligned. If we look at the ND, those waypoints that I created to fly the DME arc properly aligns perfectly with 16-mile range from the Bravo Victor. And if you don't have it on your legs page, you need to program these custom waypoints or pilot waypoints. I'd like to show this to you, but this is subject for another tutorial. So if you'd like to learn how this is done, please leave me a comment and I'll be more than happy to record another video. I wish I had time to explain this here, but it will make this video too much longer and I'd like to stick to the topic. So let me know if you want to learn about this. So that's how we are going to fly the DME arc. I'm gonna arm the exit from the hold, and then the aircraft should exit the hold and start flying the DME arc. And if we take a look at our vertical profile, first altitude we need to set on our MCP is 4,500. And it is our initial approach fix, which is 16 DME from Bravo Victor. We need to be at 4,500, and at 8.5 we need to be at 3,400. So these two altitudes we are going to set, and how we are going to do this is when we are 2 miles away from this waypoint, which is Charlie Quebec 16 on our FMC right here. 2 miles before this we will set 3,400, and the VNAV should keep descending and the aircraft should not level off. And when we are 2 miles away from this, we will set another altitude, and in this case it is going to be our minimums, which we haven't set, so let's do that too. Remember that was 1740, so we will set 1740 here. Just a little bit more. 1740 is set, so that's the last altitude we are going to select on our MCP to keep the aircraft descending. And when we reach the minimums, which is 1740, we will set our missed approach altitude, and the aircraft should not stop descending and it should keep going. Although we need to set below minimums for the aircraft to descend, so when we are reaching our minimums, we will set a lower altitude, and airport elevation is 100 feet, 108 feet, so we will select something like that, and when we pass the minimums, we can set the missed approach altitude, and the aircraft should keep descending. So that's all we need to do. Now it is time for us to go to the hold page and arm exit hold and execute this. So exit is armed now, and the aircraft should exit the hold after completing this turn. We are still at 6,000. I'm not gonna set the altitude just yet. I'm going to wait until we exit the hold, and we will set 4,500. This should put the aircraft to a very gradual descent while maintaining the speed, and the speed window we will open and try to slow the aircraft down for flaps and landing gear. So that's the plan. That's the approach briefing, I'd say, and we will see how we can fly this properly. The only thing we need to be very careful when we are flying this approach with an offset NDB is to make sure we are giving us enough time to make the turn to intercept the runway. Otherwise we will be too late and we won't be able to land the aircraft properly, or it will be a floaty landing, or we need to do a go around. So right now the aircraft is turning around. We can keep the range at 20 or go to 10-mile range, and we should see the aircraft exiting the hold and it reaches Araco, and the hold should disappear from our ND. Just waiting for that to happen. Winds are calm. I've checked the METAR information. QNH is 1022, which is already set. Our landing lights are on, passenger signs are on, and auto brakes are set, and all we need to do is the flaps and slow the aircraft down for landing. One last thing we need to set is to go to the index page, approach page, and we need to select our landing flaps. In this case we will be landing with flaps 40, and that gives us a reference speed of 141. With a wind correction of 5 knots, we should set 146 on our MCP. That is now done. We are waiting for the aircraft to exit the hold, which is going to happen any moment now, as we are now approaching Araco. We are still on VNAV, and if the aircraft doesn't start descending after we set the altitude to 4,500, which is more likely, it is still holding, and VNAV alt is displayed, so we need to show the VNAV path, so we can press the altitude intervent and it should switch to VNAV path and the aircraft should start descending. Right now we are descending down to 4,500, and we can open the speed window and slow the aircraft down to flaps 1 speed. This should give us what we need. If we don't see the aircraft slowing, we can always deploy flaps to create more drag. I'm going to arm the speed brakes now for landing. We have speed brakes green. Let's bring the yoke up, and we'll go through this short landing checklist when we get to that part. So we are not slowing as fast as I like, so I'll go flaps 2 now, and hopefully that will give us enough drag to slow the aircraft down. Okay, flaps 2 selected. I'm checking the flap indicator to go to flaps 2. Now we can slow down to 170 knots, which is I believe flaps 5 speed. and we can select flaps 5. Flaps 5 selected, aircraft is slowing down. We can go to 10-mile range. We are 1.2 miles away from Bravo Victor 03. These are custom waypoints. I'm waiting to see Charlie Quebec 36. And when we are at 2 miles, we will set the next altitude on our MCP. We are slowing down nicely, which is great. So that's flaps 5 speed. And we're looking good. That is the 16-mile ring that we draw. And I'm gonna stay at flaps 5 until we reach the 10-mile ring, and then configure the rest of the flaps when we pass that ring, to give myself a little bit more time to explain everything. I might configure a little early. If you want to challenge yourself, try to configure this when it's time, but I need some more time to explain things a little bit better, so I might be configuring everything a little bit early than expected. Okay, about to reach Bravo Victor 04 in about 0.5 miles. Speed is looking good. We are still a little bit fast, which is fine. We can always use speed brakes to slow the aircraft down. But at this point, I don't see it necessary. Okay, we started to reach Charlie Quebec 36, 2.7 miles. I'm getting ready to set the next altitude on our MCP. 2.4, 2.3, 2.2, 2.1, and we are going down to 3,400. The aircraft should keep descending. And we will monitor and select the next altitude, which is our minimums, when we get closer to our final fix, which is right after this one. We can now set our heading bug for the final approach and match it with the final approach course in case something goes wrong. So that's now set. And that's our final fix in front of us, 3,400. And when we are 2 miles away from it, I'm going to set 1700 on the MCP and slow the aircraft down and go to flaps 10 for landing gear. All looking good. Weather is not too bad. We should see or have a visual of the runway when we get a little bit more closer. So we heard the altitude warning. That's no problem. We are still on VNAV path, checking the FMA. 5 miles to our final fix. Still waiting to select the next altitude on our MCP. This shouldn't create any issues. And if we are not going to take over and disconnect the autopilot at our minimums, we can select the lower altitude and keep going until we have a visual of the runway and the puppies. Alright, 3.5 miles, getting closer. And as you see, this is a very gradual descent. I'm gonna slow the aircraft down a little bit more to 165 knots. That should give us enough headroom to configure the rest of the landing procedure and flaps, landing gear, etc. to prepare. Okay, we are at 2 miles. I'm going to select 1700. The aircraft should keep descending on VNAV path, and you can always bring the vertical path display on your ND and see where you are at. So we are reaching our final fix in 1 miles, and that's the 10-mile ring that we are passing. We have just passed the 10-mile ring, and now we can slow the aircraft down a little bit more and select flaps 10 and get ready to deploy the landing gear. So flaps 10 selected, speed 160. We are slowing down and descending towards our minimums. when we get to our minimums, if we want to keep descending and if we don't have a good visual of the runway, we can select like 500 feet and the aircraft should keep descending. And we can slow down and deploy the landing gear. So 6 DME from the VOR, or VOR from the DME, we will select landing gear down and flaps 15. So 6, landing gear down, flaps 15, and we'll select our reference speed. I decided to go down to the reference speed because winds are calm and we don't need 5 extra knots for wind correction, so that's why. 2 miles, so we can now select 500 feet, bring up the vertical profile window, and now we are waiting to get a visual of the runway and keep deploying flaps 25, now going flaps 30 and going final flaps. We are coming down to minimums. We are still on profile. Aircraft is controlling everything. I got a visual of the runway roughly. That's the center line, and we can see it on our ND2, that white dashed line as I mentioned before. So we are coming down to 1,000 feet, and I am tempted to take control anytime now to align ourselves with the runway and land the aircraft. So coming down to 1,200 feet, started to see the puppies. I think I'm getting close to disconnect the autopilot now. And this is going to be a challenging landing because of the offset approach. So we'll see how well I'm going to be able to fly this. So autopilot disconnected, making a slight left turn to align with the runway. Trying to watch the puppies. I see 1 red and 3 whites, so I am not on profile. I need to slightly lower the nose. And I'm gonna keep this path until I get closer, and then try to turn into the runway and align with the runway center line. The 2 white, 2 red, puppy is looking okay. And yes, the terrain warning, we know what it is. That's the terrain left of me. 3 whites, 4 whites. I am high now. I need to lower the nose and get back on profile without getting a sync rate warning. Keep turning. Getting ready to disconnect the auto throttle. Now we are lined up. The throttle now disconnected, getting back on profile. Pull the nose up, a little bit off to the left. Coming down. Okay, 100 checked.
30, 20.
Cutting the throttles, holding, and then we touch down. Reversers are engaged, maintaining the center line. Trying to get back there. And auto brakes are doing their thing. We slowed down enough, so disconnecting or disengaging the reversers and auto throttles and roll down to the end of the runway. There should be a turning circle, and we will turn around and park the aircraft. We can bring the flaps in, speed brakes now can come in. We can slow down a little bit because I don't want to overshoot the turn, slowing down to 15 knots of ground speed, roughly, and then trying to make the turn properly. If need be, I can always use my left toe brake to make the turn a little bit sharper so that I don't get off the runway. But looks like this turn is looking good. Give a little bit of throttle, and looks like we made the turn. So now we will head back to the taxiway and vacate the runway and find ourselves a parking spot. Not a bad landing, a challenging one. I highly recommend you to try if you want to challenge yourself. La Palma is one of those challenging airports due to that offset NDB, and this might give you a good practice to improve your landing skills. We can Fire up the APU, runway turn off lights and taxi light can come on. I should have turned them on when I dropped the landing gear, but well, I was busy lining up in the runway, so that's acceptable, I guess. Nothing to worry about. So we are rolling down the runway. I can go a little bit faster to vacate the runway and then slow down when we get to that exit in front of us. Okay, coming down. Now I can bring the throttles back to idle. Slow the aircraft to make that turn. That looks better. Still a little bit more to slow down, still a little bit faster, but now we can make the turn. This is a high-speed exit, and we will take a right turn towards the terminal and find ourselves a parking spot. So runway vacated, runway turn off lights and landing lights can come off now. The strobes can also come off. We can make this turn and we'll turn the transponder back to altitude reporting off. I'm not sure why we stopped here, so that's not good, but we will hopefully keep moving. There we go, and we'll find a parking spot on somewhere over there next to the tower. Take this taxiway and welcome to La Palma. Very challenging landing. As I said before, I highly recommend trying this out to give yourselves some challenge, and you can fly as many times as you want. But we will park the aircraft, and I think the landing was not too bad, so we will find a parking spot on our left wherever we can park, and we will call it a day. Looks like the GSX jetways are not properly aligned with this scenery. It looks like that's what is happening here, and I'm not able to see a proper parking spot, so I'll go a little bit more, cut the throttles, and maybe park to that half jetway right over here. So let's slow down and see if I can do a better job with parking this time. I see the yellow line now, so I think this is gate 5. We can start turning and correct our view. There we go. Not bad alignment, I'd say. Go full forward, look higher to see where we need to stop, slow down a little bit more, and then get past that red line. I think is where we need to stop. Okay, we can stop now. Set our parking brakes. APU should be on by now. It is. We can put the APU. Generators online, and 2 blue, 1 red. Engines are dead. Can open the lower DU for engine information. When we are below 20% N2, we can turn off the anti-collision lights and clean up the aircraft. Coming there. Below 20%, anti-collision lights are off, APU bleed on, engine bleeds off, X-auto isolation valve open, and recirculation valves open. We can turn off the electric hydraulic pumps. Probe heat, window heat, we don't need them anymore. Yaw damper, we don't need it anymore. Fuel pumps, except the aft that feeds the APU, can come off now. MCP, we can set the course back to 0 for the next flight or the next crew. Altitude can go back to 10,000. That's the default in 737. And speed can go back to 100 and heading can go back to 100. But now we can turn off the flight directors. We can turn off the stab trim switches down below. We can turn off the IRS switches, which is up there. And this is the initial shutdown. Transponder can go back to standby. ADF can be turned off. We can turn off the brightness of the panels, release the passengers. And that's about it, guys, for this. The rest of the shutdown, I don't need to share that with you. You have seen that with me. 48 minutes for the entire flight. We'll stop the timer here. And the jetway is already connected, so welcome to La Palma. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial about how to fly an NDB approach. If you did, please consider giving a like, and if you stumbled upon this video and not a channel subscriber, please take a couple seconds to hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot, and it makes the algorithm to promote this video to the other flight simmers who are interested in the topic. Thank you very much for your patience and watching the video, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.